Hey Basil, thank you for joining us today. First
Of
first
course.
episode. I don't even know how I'm going to name this podcast, but we'll see. We'll see once all of this is done. So today we're here to talk about your experience in the US as a foreigner. You're coming us from Germany, so you had to go through a lot of applications and different things to get your visa approved to get to your school. How was your experience in school, and what motivated you to either find a job in the US or leave the US at the end of your time here? So give us a quick explanation on who you are and how did you come to have the chance to come to the US for your experience in undergrad.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always nice to talk to you. I am, yeah, let's start with like how I went to United States. I remember I was just finishing up high school in Germany, and all of my teachers, my family members, and my friends, they asked me the same question. They said, you can, study in Germany pretty much for free while you continue to receive free healthcare and have access to affordable student housing. Why would you move to a country where a bachelor's degree costs between, 200 and $300,000? And I remember I told them I have a gut feeling telling me to do this. And it was basically, I didn't look at specific classes or majors, but I just thought that the idea of living and studying in California was so amazing and something I really wanted to try. Um, and I think this gut feeling came from two reasons mainly. The first one was in the United States, you live on campus, you fully immerse yourself on this experience. It's not just the classes like it is in Europe, but also there's a lot of extracurricular activities. There are a lot of events that you can either organize or participate in. And all of these things, that was something I really wanted to try. And the second part was I really wanted to be a student athlete. I think it's cool, how serious in the United States the university takes sports. I remember we had really good coaches. We had strength and conditioning coaches. We were traveling all over the West Coast, and I got to play with soccer or football players from all over the world, which was really fun. So I think at the end of the day, I just pictured myself waking up, practicing for 2 to 3 hours, and then going to class in the afternoon, and then at night you can drive either to San Francisco or to the beach if you want. And honestly, that's pretty much how it was. So for me, it was an amazing experience. I'm really thankful that I did it.
Okay, I understand. Coming from high school where you had that sense of community, I would guess from your high school as well. You didn't want to go to a European university, Germany, France. I think most of European countries are the same, where you just have your own apartment, you go to your classes during the day, which are usually longer than American classes too for university, if we're honest. And then just go home or hang out with friends that you already have, or you have to have actual like social life around and be behind your university to get to this point where you feel comfortable having things all day. Whereas in the US, you have this sense of community that's already existing, and you're just integrating this community. And as you've played soccer, it was also another group of friends that you made within and without the university, as I guess.
Yes, so like you said, you live on campus, and I think one of the best things, maybe probably the best thing I took away from Menlo are the really close friends that I made. I made some of my closest friends there. And the cool thing is, you get really close with them. You have a lot of quality time because you can, you wake up, like I said, you practice together, then you have lunch together, you study together. And I think it's very special because, like you said, in Europe, often it's the case that you live in a city, and then maybe it's your home city even, and you go to university there, which I think can be amazing as well. But I think in the US, what's cool about it is that you can like reinvent yourself and you meet people from all over the world, and you kind of have to go and talk to them because you're by yourself and you're out of your comfort zone already. And I think that was something that I really enjoyed.
Definitely, yes, I totally understand that. So coming from Germany, what was your process to go from your high school, the end of your high school, to Menlo? What organizations did you have to go through? How is the visa process going on? Did you have to do like interviews even to get into the US, like with the school directly or without like the school?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my process was very unique. I first wanted to go with an athletic scholarship, so I gave myself 1 year after I graduated from high school, and I started working with an organization that helps German soccer players to study in the US. And at the same time, I was working a handful of jobs. I worked like 8 jobs that year, I remember. And 10 months in, the organization that I was working with didn't really give me any good scholarships, no real opportunities. And then there was another organization that helps you with academic scholarships, which is called Go Campus, which was really helpful. And I don't know if you also went to Go Campus. Did you?
So I went through an organization called PIE,
Okay.
which is specific to France, I think. I don't really know how it works, but it is a joint with Go Campus. So we don't go through Go Campus directly, but PIE is has some kind of contract with Go Campus, which allows us to have that opportunity to come to the US and give us the scholarship at the end.
Yes, so I would definitely recommend international students to like work with organizations like that. I think the campus was really great. Menlo was in their portfolio. I remember it was a tough time because I tried to find university and then I saw their portfolio and they list everything. They list the majors, the location, which division it is for sports, and also how much you have to pay. And I remember I was like, if this is true, I'm coming. I told them like 5 minutes later. I knew it right away. But then obviously it wasn't a soccer scholarship, so I had to go to the Menlo College and like try out 2 times until I joined the team. Because I really, like I said, I really wanted to play soccer as well. But yeah, I ended up going with an academic scholarship. And I think sometimes in Europe, maybe you don't think that you can go with an academic scholarship because those are really hard to get in Europe, right? You have to get like an almost perfect GPA. And I remember my GPA was pretty good, but it was not perfect. So I think if you're coming from Europe, it's definitely worth looking into like academic scholarships as well.
Interesting. So what you're saying is that with Go Campus on your situation, you had either the choice of academic scholarship or soccer scholarship.
No, sorry. So the way it was for me is I tried to go with a soccer scholarship. I worked with an
But
organization,
you
not
went.
Go Campus, a different one,
Okay.
for like 10 months, but then they didn't give me any good scholarships for any university that I liked. They were all in the middle of nowhere where I didn't want to go, or I didn't like how they were academically, or I didn't like the soccer program, so it didn't fit. And then I kind of left that organization. I already paid them like a couple of thousands of dollars, but I left them because Go Campus gave me a better offer academically. They just gave me an academic scholarship. So I took an academic scholarship and instead of an athletic scholarship. And then later, when I was at Menlo, it switched because I joined the soccer team, so it was an athletic one again. But I chose an academic one in the beginning.
But you were so it's nice that you were able to get that athletic scholarship at Menlo at the end as well.
Yes.
But one thing that's surprising to me is that you mentioned academic scholarship because through the organization that I went through, which is Partners with Go Campus, we did have to send like our transcripts from high school, but it's not taken into account into the scholarship. The scholarship is mostly based on your parents' revenue. So that's why it's definitely interesting. I don't know, like maybe it's because PIE works this way, and then they just go through with Go Campus like through their partnership, or just Go Campus works different depending on the countries, or which that's definitely interesting. Yeah. So tell me, what did you major in at Menlo? How did you live those 4 years of undergrad? Because we're one of the last COVID graduation as well. Like nowadays, there is no more classes that are going to graduate that were in university during COVID. So
Yeah, I mean,
tell us
I,
about this experience.
it was crazy, honestly. I majored in, so I didn't, oh, that's also one thing about American universities that I personally really like and was one reason I went there. You don't have to pick your major in the beginning like you do in Europe. You can like try out some classes from different majors. At Menlo College, there are all the business majors and then psychology as well. So I did that, and then only after the second year, I remember my academic advisor told me it would make sense for you if you pick business management as a major with a focus on entrepreneurship because you took already so many design thinking and entrepreneurship classes. So I did that in the end. But that's something I really enjoy about the American universities. I only picked my major 2 years after I started, based on which classes I took and which classes I liked. So I think that's a big plus as well.
Yes, definitely. You had the ability to choose your path over time, and you didn't have to make a hard decision at first, and then in 2 years, oh, shit, I have to change my major and retake all these classes I didn't have like I couldn't take before because I didn't think about it. Yes, definitely big difference from Europe. But tell us more about the life on campus. How did you live it? How did your friends that remained in Germany saw you living in the US? What were like the differences and most also about the athletic part of it? You mentioned the soccer team, where you were able to travel to play with like all the other international or American students that were in the soccer team. How does that fit all together? Maintaining the social life on campus, the athletic, the academic. What is the time management going on in there?
Yeah, those are a lot of good questions. So I remember one thing, as soon as I joined the campus, I wanted to get involved. So a few weeks after, I applied, or I was running for a freshman class president, and luckily I got the position. And then a few weeks later, I participated in like a startup weekend, which Menlo, by the way, paid for. So one thing that worked really well for me, which I encourage everyone to do, is to get involved early on. Because, like I said, I think in the US the classes they're a little bit easier than in Europe, at least for most universities. Probably not the Ivy Leagues, and especially for business majors, I think they take a little bit of less time when it comes to studying and memorizing things. So you can spend your time, effort, and your energy on like extracurricular activities. Like I always, when students ask me, I always tell them like try to spend as least as time as possible on like your grades while still getting good grades, so you can focus all on your time on networking. Honestly, so that's something that I honestly unconsciously did a little bit in the first year. I was also working on campus and all of that stuff, and it really opened a lot of doors. Like for example, we have the UAF program at Menlo College, which is like a design thinking program that Stanford University offers. So I was able to get into that one, I think, because I was already involved. And then there are like a few other things as well. Um, and I think then all of those experiences helped me to get an internship. So to sum it up, I think it's, especially as an international student, it's good to get involved. And then the athletic part, because I only joined the soccer team after I think like 2 years, was definitely like something I didn't underestimate it, but it takes a lot of time and it's very hard to do other things if you're studying and you're playing soccer. So something that I also realized, luckily I also had all these other things going on already, but if you just come there as a student athlete, I think it's very easy to just like, do your classes and focus on your sport, which is great, but you have to realize that in most cases you're probably not going to play it professionally later. So I think it's a good thing that even though you already have your sport and your team, if you still like get involved, in other ways, like for example organizing events or like joining student clubs and such things.
Okay, yes, definitely. So soccer being part of your the big part of your life and why you were also at Menlo at the end was also just a way for you to keep going a hobby that you had before, but the main focus had to be on networking around you. And this networking enabled you to have a job after Menlo.
Yes, I think so.
With your business management major, you were able to have 1 year OPT at Menlo. I mean, from Menlo to work in the US legally. From this OPT, we know that it's pretty hard for international students to get jobs in the US because of this visa and all the requirement that there are for the companies. The companies don't want to always invest time and money to international students when they know they can leave after 1 year. Just leave because they want to leave or leave because they don't have any visa anymore. And the process to get the new visa is terrible, as we all know. So, how did you approach this year of working in the US? Like going into graduation, you knew you had 1 year in the US? You knew you could just go to Germany, take a year off. What was your process going through this 1 2 month before graduation, and how did you end up figuring it out?
Yes. So to give a little bit of context in general, maybe if anyone is not as familiar with this, like when you have the student visa, the F1 visa, you have 4 years that allows you to study for 4 years, and you can do some internships during that time. And then after that, you can work full time for 1 year, which is called the OPT, like you said. And then after that, if you want to continue working, you will have to enter the H1B visa lottery, which your employer will have to sponsor you. And I think the chances right now are around like 10% that you get it. So you will most likely not get the H1B.
Uh,
So,
I
right?
think it went up because there was a new law into place, because before it was so low because big companies like Google or Apple had so many different companies under them that they were able to enter one person with the same name, the same social for all their different companies, the subsidiaries. So like Basil that was working for Apple could have had one entry for ZH1B with Apple, one with uh, the like Apple TV, like the subsidiaries of Apple, like all the different companies. But nowadays, if there is only more than one entry, the candidate is cancelled basically. So if you have two entries for your own name and your own social, you will be cancelled. You will not participate in the lottery. So I think it increases the chances very much to get the H1B, even though it remains still a lottery and still very hard to get. I think this improves the chance a lot.
Okay. I think I saw some numbers last year and it was like between 10 and 20%, right? So
Yes,
like,
around
yeah.
these numbers. Yes.
Okay. So most likely you won't get it either way. But yeah, so for me specifically, like you mentioned, I did my internship with Bain after my junior year, and then I knew that I was going to join them full time and that they would sponsor the lottery, but I didn't get it. But I knew that Bain allows you to relocate to an international office, which was good to know. So then I relocated to Canada and worked there for a little bit before I left by the end of last year. But I think as an international student in general, if you can, I think it's helpful to try to do your internship or your OPT with an international company. Because even if, I mean, they might sponsor you, but even if you don't get the visa, maybe you can transfer to an international office. Or if you can't, at least you have an international company on your resume, which will help you to apply for jobs in other countries. So I think knowing all these things kind of helped me a little bit, but I know from a lot of other international students who couldn't find a job because it's so difficult. Because, like you said, the employer knows that after 1 year you will most likely have to leave the US.
Yeah. So you mentioned Bain. So you stayed 1 year at Bain in the U.S. during your OPT, right?
Yes, and
Like
then
for
three
the
months in
full
Canada.
time. And then did you choose to go to Canada, or did they offer you different possibilities of offices?
So in my example, I remember like the economy was like not amazing. So they kind of suggested Toronto because it's very close to America. The culture is very similar. Obviously, like English is the main language. Um, but they kind of chose it for me, and then I said, okay, I'm gonna try it.
Okay, good experience at the end.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun.
So you said you stayed like 4 or 5 months in Toronto at Bains. What what happened then? Why did you choose to stop at Bains, and why not try again to come into the US to like still work here? Because I remember you told me you just got back to Germany, right?
Yes.
So being in Germany now, what's your plans for the future? Has your international experience made you want to come home and still live there, or do you plan to come back to the US at one point, go to Canada, South Africa, or what is your process from where you went from Bain San Francisco to Bain Toronto to right now?
Yes. So a good question. I'm gonna answer with this one framework there is that I saw it like a few years ago in a personal development conference. It's by this German guy. His name is Stefan Friedrich. And it says like, when you like start a new project, your body like releases dopamine, you're like in the zone, in the flow, and then hopefully you will achieve your goal with this project, right? So your body, you feel happy, you feel like you achieved something, so your body releases endorphins. And then after that, there's like this third phase in this cycle. It has three phases, which is where you reflect on the experience and you calm down and your body kind of releases serotonin. And I think in general, for me, after seeing this like a few years ago, I realized that if you want to be successful, not just in the short term, but if you want to be successful over like the next decades to come, it's important to also take breaks for yourself. And for me personally, I had to pay for my own tuition at Menlo. So my years looked like this. Like I would, come to campus. I had like a few different jobs on campus. I was, like we talked about, I played soccer as well, and then I wanted to make sure that I get good grades as well. And then in May, when you have summer break, I went home and I worked for the German Red Cross. So basically, I went door to door selling donation memberships all summer so I could pay for my tuition during the year. So like this is what kind of my time at the university looked like. And then after I immediately joined Bain because of the visa situation that we just talked about, right? You can't just take a year off because you have to do your OPT. So I didn't really have a break. And then after I left Bain, I felt like now would be a good time to take a break. And as you know, I love traveling, and it really helps me to like unwind. So I just did a South America trip for 4.5 months, and it was incredible. I'm really thankful that I did it. Yeah.
4.5 months is a pretty nice break. You were
I
able
know.
to. I know I followed you, so you were able to go to a lot of different places and have beautiful landscapes and amazing experiences. I'm sure meeting a lot of new people as well. I think you still like your network. Like I know you're a great person in social events and you love to network. Just just because you are that kind of person. So now that all these experiences passed you and you're back in Germany, you can, how do you say, you can see what the past has given you. I guess you can realize that those experiences are past, but you get a lot of um, I would say emotional intelligence to a certain point from this experience, and you can focus more on what you want to do now. So as we mentioned with the visa situation and the current, I guess, geopolitical events going on in the US and in the world in general, it's not the best time to move around too much. But how do you see this going from now on? Do you see yourself staying in Germany and start a career over there, going back to Bain, maybe Bain, Germany, or trying to come back to the United States at one point because you feel like you still have something unachieved in the country?
Yeah, good question. So I think for now, I'm mainly looking for opportunities in Europe. I mean, you know what it's like when you live on a different continent for more than 5 years. It's nice to be a little bit closer to home. But I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be opposed to going back to the US in the future. I think you never know. But yeah, I think for now, mainly Europe.
Maybe Europe? Fair
Yeah, I
enough.
think so. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned there's a lot of things going on geopolitically right now, and a lot of things in the US right now that I don't agree with. One of them is how they treat international students. I think it's very unfortunate. So if you are an international student or you're going to be an international student, I think it's just helpful to like monitor closely like what's happening. Um, but yeah, so that's a little bit unfortunate, honestly.
Yeah, it's an interesting development. I can't really react on that because I've seen that they're trying to veto some visas now. So I prefer to keep quiet and let's the process to do. Because I'm
Are you
waiting.
are
I'm
you
sure.
applying for the H-1B visa right now? Or
So my H1B got
PT?
I got picked at the lottery in March.
Nice. Okay, nice.
Fortunately, that's how I know. Like the HR at my company told me about the fact that these big companies couldn't have like multiple entries for the same person. So currently, I'm waiting for my H1B petition to be approved or not, which is uh, which is concerning because I've heard a lot of different people from SF, so Adeli or other people that were like trying to get their OPT, their CPT, their G1 approved or reapproved, and are getting denied. So until my H1B is approved, I will remain in Miami, and hopefully it will be approved. And if it's not, I think I will join you on the path to find a job in Europe. Unfortunately, but yes, it's going to be an interesting development for sure in the US in general. I think international students right now have to be very quiet, unfortunately, to a certain point. So it's I think for when we came to the US in 2018, 2019, the American dream was still a big thing in our decision to come here. I think you can relate on that. We saw a lot of opportunities as well, not only just the life on campus. And nowadays, it seems like a dream unachieved for a lot of us, and a dream that's getting more into a nightmare to a certain point. So
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to react on this, but it's interesting development that we're seeing.
definitely. I mean, this may be a hot take. I think the American dream is still possible. I still think the US is a great place to kickstart your career, maybe the best place, and to be financially successful. But there's two things I want to add. The first one is we just talked about it. There's a lot of political things that I don't agree with. And like we said, one of them is how they treat international students, and the laws can change really quickly. I know from a lot of other friends, you mentioned it already, that are very concerned. But if they do let you, stay in the US and study in the US, I think it comes with a lot of opportunities. And I think the second part is that when it comes to the American dream, I think one part of it is like access to opportunities. And I don't think that there's equal access to opportunities in the United States of America right now. But I think, what does that mean for international students or like for us? It means you probably have to work a little bit harder than like most Americans. Like I think you have to, have like a better GPA, you have to have like a really good resume, you have to have some good extracurricular activities. So I think the hard work part maybe got a little bit harder right now, but I think it's still possible if you're willing to try. Like based on my experience, I can say that hard work still gets acknowledged, it still gets appreciated, and I think it still gets rewarded in the US. And if you come as an international student, I think still if you can come, you speak several languages, and if you start in university, I think anything is still possible.
So on the to react on that on the equal opportunities for the US. So you mentioned hard work is paying off. I agree to it to a certain point that because we don't have the same kind of opportunities, the same hard work wouldn't be appreciated the same way depending on the companies. Because as you know, having a degree is great and required for most jobs, but a lot of jobs also want you to get not only internships, but would like to see more experiences on your resumes and just, oh, I did my 2 month internship, you have to hire me. And I think one of the big things that could be done for international students in the US is allowing us to have a job outside of campus. Because
Yes.
to put it in context, international students are only allowed to work on campus when they're coming into the country to study. But even though we have a social security and a bank account and everything, and we're legal to be in the United States, we're not allowed to work in any companies outside of our university. So I think this should be arranged to a way that students that wants to work outside of campus can, because it would not only allow us to have more experience on the resume and have equal opportunities as the American citizens that are coming to study, but it would also make it easier on us to pay for university. I think you can agree with it that if you were able to work outside of campus during the year, even though you were working in Germany in the summer, you would probably have taken this opportunity.
100%. I think what you said makes 100% sense. I think it's good for American companies too. They got fresh perspectives from international students. Or like almost all of the international students that I've seen are very hardworking. I remember at Menlo, like when, like a lot of the awards for like at the end of the year, academic awards and athletic awards were received by international students. I know that the valedictorian this year was an international student. I know that the valedictorian last year was an international student.
It
Um,
was yeah, it was Juliet and Connor, so one American, one international.
yeah, okay, last year was two valedictorians, right? So one American, one international. This year was Antea, I think. So
Yes,
a German girl.
and
Okay, so
Sam
uh,
was Sam. No, I think for
Samuela was before, I think.
Samuele was before, and then it was
From Italy, by the
Rufus,
way.
that is Indian.
Yes,
So
so I think especially at Menlo College, I don't know if other universities may be different, but especially at Menlo College, international students have an amazing track record. And like you said, I think the situation, the visa situation, it doesn't mean you can be successful and you can stay in the US. Like I've seen also people who do it, but it makes it a lot harder. Like not being able to work outside of campus, only being able to stay for 1 year for sure. All these things are a big challenge because it makes employers hesitant to hire you. They hesitate. And then if an American student has the same GPA as you or the same experience, they might hire them.
yes, definitely. And ultimately, it also relates on the network you are able to build. Like from I think from your point of like your experience and my experience, we can relate that net. Even though we have all these extracurricular activities like working, being an athlete, going to club events, and even just being social on campus, nothing will replace the advantage that networking gives you. So what would be your one take on how to network the right way in college?
Good question. Um, I think it's looking for things that you're passionate about and like meeting people on them. So for example, I meet a lot of international students who stay with students who other internationals from their own country at all times. And I get it, it's comforting and like everyone does it. But I think part of your time you should spend with people who have similar interests in you. So for example, like you said, the first place could be on campus, like where you like join another student club with other people. But then also we were very lucky that we went to a university in Silicon Valley, which means there are a lot of like opportunities outside of campus. I mean, there's a like all the
Yes.
big tech firms are there. Like the opportunities are endless. So I think just finding what you're passionate about, which is easier said than done. But if you have something, for me that was personal development. But like for other people, if it's something related to tech or if it's something related to the environment, then like maybe go to events that kind of like are about that topic and then just start talking about it to other people. And I think one thing that's also always a good if you are able to do it is to like talk about things that you have already achieved. Like, if you meet someone really cool, I think it's good to have two or three things to talk about or things that you're doing right now, which could be like something on campus, but just like topics. So you don't just say, hey, like this is my name, what's your name? Do you want to connect on LinkedIn or do you want to look over my resume? Because you're basically just asking them to do something for you. But it's better if you can find common ground for like a common passion, if that makes sense.
Okay, so having the common passion and having topics outside of the common passion as well, just topic that someone with a kind of entrepreneurship mind and career focused person would understand and would appreciate listening and participating to as well.
I think so. Like I mean, you have to understand that as an international student, your network starts at zero, basically, right? Like at home, you have your family, you have the people you know from high school, you have the people you know from your local sports club. Like everyone has a network where they grow up, even if they don't realize. Or like usually you have fun, even if you don't realize it. But if you move to a different continent, you don't know, I didn't know anyone. Maybe some people do, but I think most international students don't. So you have to network a little bit more. And then, like, for example, you're doing this podcast right now about international students. Now, let's say you meet someone who, I don't know, you work with who is also international. You can tell them about, hey, like, I'm doing this podcast with international students, blah blah blah, and then they're gonna say, "Wow, that's so cool." And let's say they're from Germany. I don't know. I'm just making this up, obviously, but like, and then you're like, "Yeah, I just had this German guy, blah blah blah," and this feels much more natural to them than if you don't have anything to talk about, or like something else could be, I don't know, any like if there's like a nonprofit that you're supporting, or like I think doing things are always good because they help you to like connect with other people, like this podcast, for example.
Oh yes, no, definitely. I think the the way I see things is that the more you do, even if it's like here, like just in my studio, like the more you do, the more you will have to be like the more you will have to talk if you meet someone with some of similar interests, but you can refocus on other things that make your life better every day, and maybe this person that you don't even know and you just met because they like finance as well can relate. And I
Yes.
think, as you said, this is very important to just have projects either in your mind, even projects that didn't develop fully yet, or projects that you're developing that will be able to make you network better and maybe change your life eventually.
100%. Like you said, even if it's just an idea that you thought about, and maybe you can talk a little bit about it. And then, like you talk to this person, you just want to talk about the idea. You don't, it's not even your intention, but then they're like, wow, I like the way you think. Do you want to, I don't know, do you want to connect on LinkedIn? And then maybe you like post something about it. And that's how you can also find jobs.
Yes, I mean, jobs, relationships, friendships. I think the way it works now is that you have to be out there, a way or another. But being out there doesn't mean that you have to spend all your time out and trying to socialize on the same idea, but also being able to have a conversation about pretty much anything and about ideas that you have in your mind.
100%. And I understand that, like, not everyone likes to meet people and talk to people, but there are like some things you can do. I mean, obviously, there are like books you can read about it, but also there's like, I guess, just like putting yourself out there, even if it feels uncomfortable in the beginning. I mean, if you do something, it's the same thing. I know you go to the gym a lot, but like if there's like a new exercise, or if someone even tries to go to the gym in the beginning, it probably feels shitty. But then if you keep doing it for a little while, it starts feeling better. And I think it's the same thing with meeting people and kind of like presenting yourself and like looking for opportunities.
Yes, definitely. So it makes me wonder, by the way, just thinking about it right now. So, for example, like with all the other internationals that you've met on campus, do you think like you could find a job? For example, like I know I will have Tem on the podcast one of these
Nice,
days.
nice. Yeah,
And do you think like you can be like if you see a job in Mongolia, you can be, hey Tam, like, do you know someone at this company? Do you know like a way how to make me more like closer to your culture for my applications to do better than some others? Like if you want to move to a country that you've never been before, now that you've moved to the US and you've made all these connections, do you think it's going to be easier with the networks of internationals that you've developed?
definitely. I definitely think so. The Mongolia is an interesting example because it's so different than Germany and the US.
No.
But but yes, like you said, like I could ask him, and I'm sure that if we chat on Zoom for 15 minutes, it would be more helpful than if I would try to look up things about the culture on like Google or ChatGPT for like 1 hour. I mean, you can do that too, but I definitely think that like it's good to just get a sense of culture, and I also think it's good to like understand like what I think is at least as good. I mean, let's say I want to apply for a job there. One thing is like increasing my chances and like impressing them, but the other thing is like, is this even the right job for me? So like, I would ask him like, look at this company, like this is where they're located, like this is what their CEO looks like, this is his background, and then maybe he would be like, wow, he used to work at this company, which in Mongolia everyone thinks that's amazing or everyone thinks that's shady, which
Yeah.
I don't know. So then, stuff like that. Like for example, in the United States, I remember a lot of international students they ended up in at the university in the middle of nowhere. And I think as a European, it's very easy to underestimate how big the US is. And if you like go to university somewhere where there's nothing, I think 4 years can be a long time. If there's not even a city, so and then they transfer. But what I'm trying to say is like that's why it's good to talk to local people to like make sure is this like a good place to go to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the size, like, I mean, not only the size of the US, but the size of the university, like going to
Yes,
UM
exactly.
here, like University of Miami, and going to Menlo is like two separate, like totally separate world that you would live in. But yes, it's I think the foreigners network works a lot, like once you're in the US, as much as your experiences with American people in general. But the goal is really to network to have this job in the end, I guess.
Not
So
only, it's also to
I mean,
make friends, but yeah, also. And I
because
think it's
I think it's way easier to make friends and to have network networking, like people that can help you, because you can make friends with anyone very easily, like going to college, like you go to parties, you wake up the next day, you have 20 new friends. But it's much harder to spend 1 year and have two people that you can actually network with and get some opportunities with them. Even though they're going to be very close friends as well, they don't have the same kind of opportunities and life changing help for you. That's what I mean in general.
yeah, I think there's a difference between like the friends you make just at parties and like really close friends. But I agree. It's easy to meet like people who you study with, and most likely they're not going to be able to give you your next job. But yeah, like I think yeah, I'm just trying to think. I mean, you have to probably go to like net different events where you can try to meet other people that are maybe a little bit older and like a little bit more advanced in their career. Um, but I think it is possible. I think also in the United States, like one thing that I think is really cool is like the professors. You can get really close to the professors, at least at Menlo, which is a really small university. Um, and I know from like other professors, like for example, I don't know if you know Fabian Eggers at Menlo College, but like he's yeah he's really involved and like he works for this company Metabob, and like some students work for the company too now. So I do think that there's like a connection.
Opportunities everywhere.
Yeah, I think so because we have to understand, like in the US, I think the universities are a lot more like businesses compared to Europe, even though they're non-profits. But you have to think about it, right? They have to like attract students. The students will have to pay a lot of money to attend that university. And how do they get the students? By showing them what's possible after they graduate. And they do it by, like showing them you and I, like, and everyone else who went to the university and what the people do like 2, 4, 5 years after they graduated. So what does this mean for us as international students? It basically means that the American universities have a higher interest in you succeeding than European universities do. So they give you more resources. Like I do think, for example, at Menlo College, you have like the career services office, which is like you can just go there, you can give them your resume, they will help you improve it. You can ask them if you can help organize the career fair. Like I remember, for example, Dennis and I, we did like a sleeping panel for like, were you still at Menlo at that point? I don't think so. But
Uh,
we,
that's possible. Maybe I was working. Like I would, like
yeah.
my
But yeah,
schedule.
so we organized this event for the career fair where we invited like two researchers from Stanford, who one of them had their own lab about sleep. Um, and basically they gave us budget for it. They supported us with the marketing, and now that's how we met them. And eventually there's a lot of different employers at the career fair too, so you can like start talking to them as well. So I think all of these opportunities are there, if you like take them. Or I remember that like the career services team, they had like this small LinkedIn guide, which I think is like, it sounds very simple, but like now I look at some people's LinkedIn, just like probably other employers do too, and I think like it could be better. So I do think that there are resources, and I think sometimes we just have to like go out and take them.
Yeah, the it's within the grab's reach, as we say, I guess.
Yeah. But I'm curious, how was your experience in Miami? Like you just said, it was very different compared to Menlo because it was so big.
So the experience with internationals, I guess, was
Yes.
very different. Like my master's class was probably 80% in international.
Okay.
I think so. I have friends that were in bachelor at University of Miami, and the bachelor classes were actually like mostly Americans. Like the diversity in undergrad wasn't as pronounced as it is in Menlo. But once you make the switch between the bachelor and the master or doctorates, you see a lot more of internationals. In my class, I had people from literally anywhere. I had Chinese, Japanese, Indians, people from Kuwait and Kazakhstan, like from anywhere. And I think it was very interesting because in this class, in the masters, you don't sleep on campus, like you don't really have that same approach as Menlo. So like for people that were in the bachelor, I think it's the same kind of experience, like on campus experience. But once you go to the master, it starts to feel a little like European university.
Okay.
You go to class and then you go home. I was fortunate enough to have the jobs I had on campus, which allowed me to like have, I guess, an extra year of Americans experience, in university. And here, like, you have fraternities and sororities, and you have football games. Like, you have just because it's a much more university, you have much more opportun opportunities to meet people, I guess, to a certain extent. And the professors were the same as Menlo. Even though it was a very big university, I'm still in contact with some of my professors from UM that can help me with my resume, can help me like know more about certain companies. So it's very different on the approach, I guess, from a small campus where it's 1,000 students to a larger campus where it's 15,000.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, no matter like the size of the campus, if you want opportunities, if you want to meet people, if you want to talk about anything, it's within your hands. Like you can do it if you want to. If you don't want to, yes, you just go to class, go home, and don't see anyone, and try to apply to 1,000 jobs on LinkedIn, and it ends up not working. But if you want to and you can put the effort into it, you you can conquer the world, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that this is still a good thing about the US. I think people are very open to that. Like if they, if you talk to them and if they see that you're skilled, I think in Europe sometimes people are a little bit more hesitant, a little bit more reserved. There are like some hurdles that you have to work out and things tend to take a little bit longer. I think that's a good thing about the US, where it's like if there's an opportunity, if somebody likes you, somebody sees an opportunity in you, they're like faster to invest in you, either literally or like over time.
I couldn't agree more, yes. So Basil, if you had three advices to give to someone in Germany that just finishes high school this year or next year and wants to move to the US, or doesn't know what to do with the future, like what would be the advice to convince them to do some of the studies, not like mandatory go to the US, but just have an international experience, either it's Erasmus or it's coming to the US for 6 months, 1 year, the bachelor. What would be your advice your advice is for it.
Why to do it? Like why you should have an international experience?
Why to do it, and what's the easiest way to reach it?
Yes. So in general, I think that traveling never seems like it's urgent, but I think it's always important. Because I like we talked about, I just did a South America trip, which wasn't even in the US, it was in different countries. But just meeting people from all over the world and talking to them was so humbling and eye-opening and inspiring, honestly. And in the end of the day, it reminded me that we're all one. And we talked about this trend that's going on right now that every country is focusing on themselves more and like not as much focusing on collaborating with other countries. And I want to say that I personally disagree with this trend. And traveling or like living in other countries helped me realize that we are stronger together, right? Like you and I, we met at university, we're from different countries, but I feel as close to you as I would feel to someone from Germany. So I think to me it doesn't really matter where you're from. It matters like who you are. And I think that that's something that I learned while traveling. And I think it just expands your horizons so much more. I mean, there's this quote which says, we go to different places, um, not to escape life, but for life not to escape us. I think it's very true. And I also want to say that right now I was doing a backpacking trip, but it's very different to living in a different country. Because when you're backpacking, it's just really fast paced. But when you live in a different country, there are a lot of challenges that come. But if you handle them, I think you become a much calmer person. Like, I don't think, small things make you nervous anymore because you're handling big visa things like you are right now and all those things. Like all the uncertainty that comes with like not knowing where you will live. Like this will help you grow as a person. So I think it was amazing. And I also want to say that it was just also the most fun time for me. I mean, like, at Menlo College, we went to a small university, but I think if you're in a different country, in general, you'll meet people from all over the world. Like, and they're all fun. Like, we went to so many cool events where there was like parties or other things, which you can, of course, do at home too. But I think it's something that I don't know, I really valued abroad, like meeting all these different people and having fun with them and learning like, oh wow, like this is how you take a shot in Brazil, this is how you take a shot in Mexico, like small things like that that don't really help you necessarily like for your career, but just for you as a person. So I think mainly the number one thing is like it helps you to get educated more on life, like it helps you to get different perspectives and to realize like in this environment right now where we are that it's still important for everyone else to be one and like collaborate together. And now, how do you do it? I think it's very that's a very tough question. Like, it depends on your specific situation. I don't know if you may have seen, but I just gave a TED talk, a TEDx talk about this, like how I did it by the end of last year. Personally, I can say that like I had to save up the money first, and then like we talked about it earlier. I think it's really helpful to work with organizations that help you to study abroad, so you're not just by yourself. I think in general, it's always good to ask for help, whether maybe there's someone in your network that you know that has studied abroad or has done what you want to do, or there's an organization, or you can listen to podcasts like this or watch YouTube videos. So I would say like just get all the information and try to get help from people who have already done it.
Perfect. Well, this is on what we'll hand this positive note from Basil. Thank you very much for joining us today, and keep us updated on what's happening in Germany and how you handle the work situation now.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. It was amazing as always, as talking to you. And yeah, I'll keep you updated. You should keep me updated too. Like, let me know how the visa situation works out, and maybe I'll see you. I'll see you in Miami. I'm going to California actually in October, probably for a wedding. But I don't know if I'm gonna be able to come to
Oh,
Miami this time.
yeah. Let's see if I'm still in Miami by that time.
Yeah, keep me updated.
Yes, sir. All right, man.